is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Matthew Wright.
Good morning, everybody. Matthew Wright here with your weekend breakfast. Astonishing debate and discussion, I'd say, for a fraction of the price Nigel Farage charges. Truly. A little later in the programme, with your help, we're going to try to understand why so many young men are turning to the far right. And interestingly, I've been looking at research that suggests while there is a trend for young men to drift politically rightwards, the trend for younger women is the polar opposite. They're going towards the left. Riddle me that, ladies and gentlemen. But first, with the right-wing press now clearly falling back into traditional Labour attack mode, which, 6 and a bit weeks after Starmer & Co won their landslide majority, even I can't deny that the revelations of the last 24 hours have me fretting somewhat. Let's look at some of the headlines. The Independent reports, train strikes return less than 48 hours after government pay deal. Has Labour lost control of the unions already, is in the Daily Mail, and the Telegraph's take is Starmer being played by the unions. Despite allowing travellers to suffer, 18 full days of train cancellations by not doing a below-inflation rate pay deal with the train drivers, as Labour managed in 6 weeks. There's loads of sniping from the Tories. But if you, like me, thought the sensible, rapid, below-aggregate inflation pay deal Starmer struck with ASLEF meant an end to 24-hour cancellations on our railways, you'd be wrong. ASLEF members working for LNER, the problem-plagued, I think it's government-owned train operator on the East Coast Main Line, are still going to walk out at weekends from the 31st of August to the 10th of November. 22 days of planned strikes that the union says are in response to bullying by management and persistent breaking of agreements by the company. Now, these LNER strikes, despite involving ASLEF members, are unrelated to the long-running train driver pay dispute. And I can understand, I hope you can, how you can have two separate disputes, or indeed more, running concurrently at any one time. But here's the thing. Labour's in power. The unions thus far, I would suggest, have been shown really nothing but goodwill by Keir Starmer, while Starmer also has the near impossible job of keeping our non-dom billionaire-owned newspapers from dumping all over him from a great height. And it just begs the question, doesn't it? Why would you feed those who wish you, the unions, and Starmer's Labour gone? Sure, you want to help your members. I get it. You want to fight injustice, especially if staff have been subject to stuff like bullying and broken promises from bosses. But is it worth chucking the baby out with the bathwater? Why help those who want your guy in Downing Street out of Downing Street? Former Brexit negotiator Lord Frost, he would be commenting on this. He said that Transport Secretary Louise Hay must be feeling really stupid as ASLEF go on strike again after she's just given them a massive no-strings pay rise. From the man whose party essentially allowed travellers to suffer, as I said, 18 days' worth of delays because they refused to join negotiations for ideological reasons. That seems a bit unfair. But then again, when she hailed the end of the train driver strike, Louise Hay did say the Conservatives deliberately dragged strikes out for 2 years, causing misery for passengers, damaging our economy, costing the taxpayer as much as $850 million in lost revenue. Labour will always put passengers first, but this LNER dispute, it kind of suggests otherwise, doesn't it? 0345 6060 973 is the number. I understand why you can have two disputes going at the same time, but there's a part of me that just thinks from a PR perspective, why don't ASLEF on the LNER issue just wait 3 months, let things go quiet? There are many other disputes to consider as well. I see border guards today are making headlines. Give us a call with your thoughts. Are ASLEF right to have further strikes on the LNER East Coast route? Well, Bartek Staniszewski is a senior research fellow at Bright Blue, a centre-right think tank aiming to change government policy and public attitudes. So he's got a job. Good morning. I knew I was going to say good afternoon. I've been doing a week of afternoons. Good morning, Bartek.
Good morning.
What is your sort of take of in the middle of the week, everything looks great for Starmer, for the unions, and 36 hours later, it's looking like, as the Telegraph says, that Starmer's being played.
Yeah, I think the voters were expecting with this new Labour government for them to have a good relationship with the unions, for them to turn things around, for things to be different. And I think if there is any area where voters are traditionally optimistic about Labour, it is their relationship with the unions. So I can see why people would be dismayed that it seems to be more of same old, that we are getting strikes again, despite those pay rises, not just for train drivers, not just the 15% pay rise in ASLEF, but we also had, of course, pay rises for junior doctors and for teachers announced. With that said, the strikes that have been announced are only on this LNER route, so it could be worse. Some strikes.
It could be worse unless you want to travel on the East Coast line, and then it's a route I use fairly often. I've got friends on the line, so it's always rubbish at the weekend as it is anyway. So I think it's quite a depressing scenario for rail travellers.
Yeah, it's not great, is it? And if you are using that line, if that is your main line, then it helps you nothing. But then, if you are traveling on another line, then you might be quite happy that there are no more strikes. With that said, the reason they side behind the strikes, this not being about pay, this being about the relationship with the bosses, the relationship with all about bullying allegations.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is something that the government can be blamed for, or is it something more to do with the internal workings of the rail company?
My gut feeling would be everything is perception, public perception. That's really what I perceive politics as managing public expectations. And on this one, I think Starmer looks really, really exposed. And so from a PR perspective, I really feel that ASLEF has sort of missed a trick, and maybe just an 8-week or 12-week delay of further strikes. Just give people a pause, soak in the good news that the train drivers' pay issue, it's still got to be put to members, but hoping it's all going to go well. And then it's just from a PR perspective alone, it could be run better. Right, and then there is also the fact that it might seem a missed opportunity if everybody else is getting pay rises, if everybody else is having their promises, is having their asks being met, then it seems to you, well, okay, I can also try to put pressure on the government. So if anything, I think there is the risk that the more you agree to concessions, the more incentivized the unions are to take further action. Bartek Staniszewski, lovely talking to you this Saturday morning.